whatnot. But you know how those courses were then, C sharp, they will write the code on the board for you and stuff like that. But that was most of it in uni. And then actually when I finished uni, I worked in field engineering. I worked for an oil service firm as a field engineer. Yeah, wearing coveralls and boots and all of that for some time. And then after a few years, I left that job. Basically, I lost that job, and then I had to really just take the next available job. So it was in a bank. So I joined one bank, a Nigerian bank, of course, graduate training program. And I think there was a time there was discussion about graduate training programs being like a way to start your career, right? So at that point, it really looked like I was restarting my career again. And I had a sort of a fresh slate. And the bank had a thing where after your graduate training, after your training school, you would do a rotation across different departments, and then they would post you to wherever. And I think I remember then saying there was a rumor that, oh, everybody was going to be posted to sales, or 70% of us were going to be posted to sales. And I knew that I couldn't sell anything to save my life. So I was just like always looking for, let me find somewhere and trick myself that is not sales. And then I got posted into corporate banking. It was kind of sales, but then the role then was called a business analyst in corporate banking, and it had a lot of reporting to do. And when I was thinking of this session today, I know that I had always told people that there was no time that I decided that I want to be a data analyst, that I felt like I fell into it. But now that I think of it again, I wouldn't say that I fell into it, and I would explain what I mean. So when I got into that role, it basically had to do with reporting the performance of the corporate banking group. So it was in sales, but I didn't have to go look for customers. I just had to do report numbers on how the group was performing. So there was a lot of Microsoft Excel. And I did not know Jack, like, except like some average whatnot. That was all I knew. But for some reason, I think because the first day my direct line, my supervisor gave me a task to do that required me to do some things in Excel, I didn't tell him that I didn't know how to do it, because maybe I was too ashamed or I was too proud. So I went and Googled it, and then I did the task. And then, of course, then there was even no chat GPT, but at least there was Google. So I Googled it, I did the task, and that sort of made him to assume that I was some sort of Excel guru. So other times he just kept giving me more stuff, Excel related work to do. And I was figuring it out on the job and stuff. And that was it. And now why I say that I don't want to now continue to believe that I fell into data was because what happened when I was on that job was then that there was a lot of reporting that we were doing with Excel, and many of them were like a bit manual. So on my own, I would say it was either driven by laziness or driven by, people can call it, if I'm feeling like a LinkedIn motivational speaker, I can call it a passion for excellence and continuous improvement. But the summary of it was that I was always looking for easier ways to do my job, right? And that led me to things that I could do in Excel. I found that, oh, there were other tools that I could use to do them, which was Power BI, which was our SQL or some other stuff. So I was like, okay, so I started trying to learn these things. And I think coincidentally that time, there was then a group training scheduled for some staff member in Power BI. Unluckily, because I was new on the team, I was not part of who that was scheduled for the training, but they allowed me to just join the class. You wouldn't get a certificate, just join the class. So I joined the class, but then of course it was like a 3-day boot camp. They didn't teach us a lot, but that help gave me the foundation I needed. And I then continued to learn on my own. It was when I started learning all of these things and then joining some communities, because then I then found a meetup about Power BI user group and stuff. And I started hearing that, oh, they call these people data analysts, oh, they use SQL Power BI. And I started reading about it. And I felt like, okay, this is something nice. And so why I would not say that I fell into it was because it took that conscious effort on my part to develop those skills and then try to like better myself, joining communities, taking those courses. Because I could have just stayed on that job and continued doing the things the same way they were doing it. And maybe today I would just know Excel. And maybe when I'm tired of that department, I'll go to another department. Maybe event planning, or there were all kinds of departments in head office, and there were even some that were like more interesting. So I wouldn't say that I fell into it, or maybe I fell into it and then I just found that it was interesting and then I developed myself. But that was really how it started, and then we went off from there. Hopefully, maybe with other questions, I will talk about like the rest of the journey.
Oh, wow, interesting. Um, I I wanted to say I started my career in the bank, then I remember that that was a lie. I actually started my pensions in sales, and all it took was 1 year of my boss saying, "Okay, so tell me, did you justify your pay today?"
Oh
You
my
know,
god.
I'm going to the ends of the earth trying to convince people to buy pension when they've not seen food. I was like, yeah, no, this sales is not for me. That's not me. And then I was in Abuja at the time and I had sworn that I wasn't going to move to Lagos because I was raised in the north. I lived in Mina, I served in Jos. I just couldn't imagine living in Lagos, right?
Living in
But
Lagos, right?
push came to shove, I was like, I go crazy. I'm gonna run mad in this place, and so I too applied to the graduate training program, and I too was told in training school that all of us were going to sales, but having done a sales job before in training school, I was like, I rather perish than land in sales, and so
Yes.
I was very sneaky. I wanted to work like in the whether either in the innovation team or in the corporate communications team. So during that time in training school, there was like an 80% pass mark. So I was learning financial analysis and things that I swear I don't to today I don't understand. But I took courses on Coursera, and then I was
Yeah.
like making pitches to the staff, whatever. Long story short, I kind of got accepted to the two departments that I wanted to get
Oh.
into. And like the HR person who sends me my offer letter was like, "What did you do? Who do you know?" I said, "Oh, there's nobody."
Right.
I just knew that I cannot do sales, right? And yeah, so my story is just to say that a lot of people look down on like graduate trainee roles in banks because again, there's this misconception that you can only do sales. But the truth is, we're all looking for different things, right? If you
Yeah.
decide to distinguish yourself right from training school, or you already have some skills, and these days, a lot of banks even do technical graduate training programs
Yeah.
separately from like
Specifically
the
for,
main,
yeah.
yeah, they do that separate from the main one. So it's like that's also a really great way to get into tech even though you're in banking, and then maybe you can transition later on to like startups or whatever. Even though you may have small big startup, they'll give you big title, then you are
Mhm.
the team lead, but you are the team. You are leading yourself. But like, if you haven't, this is the beginning of your career and thinking of what to do, I encourage you. Graduate training programs are a great way to start, and a lot of them come with good benefits. So there's that to consider. So moving on, you mentioned a few things that you had to like research and learn in order to like improve the reporting process at your job. I know you mentioned Power BI. I've seen you like posts about Power BI, and I was just like, "This some weird stuff. Don't know what this is." And then SQL. Okay, my computer science degree is not in waste. I know SQL. So like, what were the tools, resources? What did you have to learn to now um, eventually then plug in directly to like data?
Yeah, so just like I was saying before, I usually, even though I usually like tell people that you may not want to focus on the tools. And when I say you may not want to focus on the tools, the reason is because it's just like I'm going to the farm and I'm going to clear the farm. Depending on the kind of clearing that I want to, what I know is that I need to clear the farm. You may use a hoe, you may use a cutlass, you may use depending on what kind of clearing you're trying to do. But what matters is that I know how to clear a farm, irrespective of whatever tool that I'm given. And especially also because in data today, there are like a gazillion of tools. And if you focus on the tools, you might just like get overwhelmed because, oh, there's so many things to learn and stuff like that. So I usually just tell people there are things that you need to know how to do, right? First, then you can talk about, okay, which tool do you know how to use to do the thing? right? And those things, for example, every organization generates data, no matter how small, even if your mom and pop shop, their bookie that sells something at your junction generates data. So the job of you as a data analyst is to know how to take that data and use it to the company's benefits. So how to help them to get value from data, to appreciate data. And what do you need to do to help them to get value from data? It starts from collecting the data. You need to understand how data should be collected. What is data? What is quality data? What are the things that need to be done to ensure that the data that is being collected is useful in the future? So it starts from the beginning. There's a whole, I know software people have what they call like software development life cycle. And with data too, it's a whole life cycle. So you start with collecting the data, then how to store the data, how to transform the data, how to manipulate the data. That's really the part where it gets interesting. So how to manipulate the data in such a way that it makes sense to business and they can get information out of it. Why did they need to get information out of it? Because they need information to make decisions. And I was giving an example of the mom and pop shop that I was talking about. If their tour book is side by side, and it just happens that one keeps selling more than the other, and you want to find out why is this guy making more money than me, and then you check, you find out that it's a place that there's a school close by, but you don't open until 9 o'clock, and then your guy opens at 7, and all the children that are going to school have already bought all their sweet and biscuits from him. And the time that they close in the evening too, you have gone to church or you have gone to mosque, and then you close your shop for another 2 hours, and then you come back by 8 or by 9, and it's a school area. Who's going to buy stuff for you by 9? You may want to like use your brain to assume it, but then if you're collecting data, for example, from 2 shops, and then you map the guy's data to what are the times of the day that he makes the highest sales, and then you see that that's the time that you're closing. You have just had a whole data life cycle because you have used data to make a decision that what I need to do to improve my business is that I need to open at the peak hours when people pass by this area. So it's really a whole life cycle, right? You're collecting data, you're transforming it, you're cleaning it, you're manipulating it, and you're putting it into beautiful charts. People like the idea of beautiful charts when they hear data analysis. They just think of fancy dashboards and all of that. But I feel like that's like the tiniest part of the work. The most difficult part of the work is actually collecting the data and knowing what to even do with it, because it's sometimes it's your job as a data analyst. The company doesn't even know what they can get out of the data that they have until you help them to look at it. And I also just always tell people, you as a data analyst, unfortunately, your job goes beyond the technical aspect of bending the data. Sometimes you need to also understand the actual business. Understanding the actual business helps you to know what to even look for in the data and then how to relate the data to the business. I'll give you an example when I worked in corporate banking. Even though I was sometimes analyzing our performance, seeing which of our customers are giving us the most money and stuff like that, occasionally I would follow our relationship managers to their client meetings just to sort of hear what they are discussing with the clients and what the clients are thinking. That way, I'm able to advise them and say that I noticed that this other customer that we're making a lot of money from, they seem to also do the same business that these guys do, but we're not making a lot of money from them. Then I hear something in the meeting and I understand that, oh, because there's something peculiar to this other customer and we can offer them this other product. That way we can also make the kind of money we're making from customer A, from customer B. So that is using data together with business knowledge to advise the business and help them be data driven. So the technical knowledge is fine, knowing how to get value from data, how to manipulate data, how to ensure that your company is collecting data right and collecting quality data is important. But again, I would say that the tools that I learned to at the start of my career, that after I learned them, I felt that I was comfortable as a data analyst. Of course, Excel, I feel like Excel is like the people underrate Excel, right? And a lot of people think they know Excel until they meet people that know Excel. So Excel is like the first thing that you have to know and master. And if you remember, I said they were using Excel on the job, but then there was still a lot of manual things. And there were other things that I was still doing with Excel, but then I was doing them in smarter ways, right? So there are like there's breadth and depth to Excel. So Excel is one thing that I believe that every data analyst should know and know very well. In fact, I always advise people to get depth in Excel before jumping like to any other tool. And it's understandable that people feel like Excel is not a technical tool. So they want to quickly run to Python where they'll be writing code because writing code gives you a feel that you are in tech. But I always tell people, calm down with the Python and sit with Excel, really. And then afterwards, you're done learning Excel. You can then go to like visualization tools. There are a lot of them, but Power BI and Tableau are the two very popular ones. So any of those two that you feel like you can lay your hand on, you can start that. Then the third thing is SQL. SQL is now fancy, you will feel like you're writing code and you feel like it takes this. SQL is the tool that you will use to get the data you want to analyze from a database. Like companies have databases. A database is literally like a wardrobe where clothes are stored or place where data is stored. And as a data analyst, before you, it's like you work in the laundry, before you iron the clothes or wash it, you need to bring it out of the wardrobe. And SQL is a tool you use to get the data out of the database or the data warehouse, whatever it is. So SQL is like another very important tool that every data analyst needs to know. Now, I feel like if you know those three things, if you have those three tools and you know them, you're comfortable with them, you really can call yourself a data analyst, right? Because those are really the three things that I learned first. I didn't learn Python until I'd been doing data for like 4 years. And of course, now there are some things that are peculiar either to the geography where you are or the industry where you are, but importantly, the geography. In Nigeria, for example, when you talk about visualization tools, Power BI is very popular. Some other places, maybe Tableau. But if you go to like many markets in Europe, Looker is a lot more popular than Power BI and Tableau. Looker is also like a data visualization tool, the one where you used to build the charts and all of that. So, but yeah, those are just really the afterwards, of course, you can learn Python and then you can start going into like cloud technologies, the likes of AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, GCP, and all of that. But those are like really advanced. But when you're starting out, if you know Excel, you know one visualization tool, and then you know SQL. I feel like you're fine. All other things you will continue to learn on the job. And the thing about when I say that there are like really a lot of tools and it can get overwhelming, I usually just advise people that don't think that an employer is not going to hire you because they want somebody that knows Tableau and you only know Power BI. Because for many of the tools that are similar, they have transferable knowledge. And many times the employer will say, oh, we use Tableau, but if you know how to use Power BI, we would still interview you because we know that the knowledge is transferable and things like that. So don't overwhelm yourself trying to like learn all of the technical tools at once. Just pick one and be good at it. And when you get on the job, if they are using another one, you will learn it on the job. We all learn on the job. But yeah, those were really the tools that I focused on when I was starting out.
Okay. Yeah, I think something you said is really important. Like, don't focus on the tool because honestly, the way the world is going now, somebody's going to tell you it's Tableau tomorrow, then somebody's, there's a startup and then there's another tool, and then you built your entire career on that singular tool. And so for you, it's almost like it's your identity and you find it difficult to switch. So I
Yeah.
think the kind of world that we're in today, you have to be nimble, you have to be someone who is easy to adapt.
Yeah.
It's like, I had like a webinar one time. Sorry about the noise. Yeah. I was talking to teachers and they were like, oh, is AI coming to take my job? And I was like, well, not necessarily. But the world that we are in now, you can't be a teacher and not know about AI. And not
Yeah.
even like this is not even saying that, oh, you want to use AI for your job. It's that your kids, the people that you are teaching, are interacting with AI, and so they're going to
Yeah.
come to you and ask you questions, but then you're going to be like, oh, I just do chalk and board, or I just do a tab. you
Yeah.
have to embrace technology, whether or not you are working in data. Um, one of the things I do for my day job is instructional design, and when I'm making online courses, a lot of times I'm just typing blah blah blah. This is the course, something something. But the organization I work with is very pro AI, so while I'm like, I want to do a quiz, and I'm like reading the course, and I'm like, oh, so question one, answer A B C D. We have a tool that you just can copy the entire course document and paste it there and tell it.
You
Do
need
you
to
want
create the questions for
exactly
you.
multiple choice? Do you want fill in the gap? Do you want and you know I was skeptical initially. I was like, oh yeah, so that day, it's my job. The first day I did it, nobody told me, man. I just copy and paste, pow. And I mean, obviously, I have to look because sometimes AI hallucinates. I have to look through and ensure that okay, this thing is actually correct. But um, just to say that we have to be adaptable. I know there was a time where what's it called? Google AdSense and AdWords and whatever were all you could do with like digital marketing. And now there's HubSpot, there's what's it called? There's Moz, there's SEMrush. There are just so many different tools that you can use. So
Yeah.
yes, um, um, get really good with Excel. Excel is you have entire corporations running on Excel. I don't know if anyone remembers,
Yeah.
but it was last year where I think it was airport or something, but there was an
Yeah, there
update
was
of
a day Microsoft was down. Microsoft
yes,
something was down.
yes, and
And
like
the whole world almost went on standstill.
yes, like the airports were grounded, like flights were cancelled, and every other day on Twitter, people are bashing Microsoft. Oh, it's not intuitive. Oh, it doesn't do this. Oh, it doesn't do that. But corporations are still running on this your
Oh,
Excel.
Microsoft.
You know, I'm still doing some equals some somewhere, but this is what some people's entire business infrastructure is built on. So even if you want, I feel like even if you want to stick with one tool, carry Excel and be so good at it that they are going to say, oh, we need someone who can do. Maybe they name
People,
someone that tool.
people literally, I've seen a lot of people get jobs, like data jobs, just because they know Excel. I've seen a lot of people get data jobs just because they know Excel, nothing more, no Python, no Power BI, nothing. They just know Excel and they get a job. So really, Excel is that underrated guy.
Yeah, that Excel is the goat. Is that it's not competing with you. Okay, you say it's outdated. You shout the day that your ticket will cut. You will come back and still be looking for Excel. So, Gertrude raised the hand. If you have a question or a comment, please can you just like put it in the chat? Questions will come after. Um, so now that you've kind of given like a what's it called a template of like how to do this, how do you now actually start the career? So how do you now get the job? Let's assume that someone has learned Excel, SQL, maybe Power BI or something. How do you now get that your first data role?
Yeah, so that's where the work starts. I think for me it was a bit easier, I would say. Well, maybe easier, maybe not for me, because so since I was already doing some data related things, the only thing that I did for myself to feel more confident was because the role that I was in was a bit nimble, so I was able to create additional responsibilities for myself that involved a lot more reporting and enabled me to practice some of the things that I was learning. So also another thing I didn't mention was, so because I automated a lot of things that my team was normally doing manually, it helped me to have a lot of time on my hands, because of course something that my boss would normally think that I need 4 hours to do, I've done it in 30 minutes and I've saved myself 3 hours. And I used that 3 hours taking another Coursera course. So I had a lot of time on my hands learning more and learning more things and getting myself better. But then what I then did was, like I said, I created additional responsibilities for myself in the group that involved a lot more reporting, that enabled me to practice all of the things that I learned. And I will tell you how you can also use that. So what that meant was that by the time I was looking for my next job, I had well a portfolio of things that I had done at my job that I could use to prove to my next employer that I'm really a data analyst and you can trust me. So, but then if you are, maybe you are in the role that you're currently in is not related to data, and then you have learned all these things and you're looking for how to like find your next job. The first very important thing, like I said, I was saying that in tech or in data, the barrier to entry is low and all of that. Nobody may necessarily be asking you, do you have a degree in data? There's no degree in data in Nigeria, or not that I know of. So but the thing that you're going to show to them is what we call a portfolio of your projects, right? So as you are learning your Excel and you're learning whatever it is that you're learning, you need to start building projects, just random things like you feel like, of course there are like sites where you can find like projects, but you can just really find like there's a lot of open data online, for example Statista and whatnot, and just practice with them and build projects that you can put in your portfolio. So usually what I tell people is every time you're sending out your CV for a job, there needs to be a link at the top that links to your portfolio. That way, the person can go there and see the things that you have done. The reason is because you don't have experience. This is also not something that you studied in school. So, as an employer, how do I know that you can do the thing? If you show me projects that you have done, then I know that, okay, I can give you a chance. But in addition to that, most times an employer is still going to give you a technical test, right? But the portfolio is even the first step that makes them feel like you are even worth the hassle of it. So building that portfolio of projects is very important. And I always tell people, even though most times if you go for a boot camp or whatnot, sometimes they will wait till the end of the boot camp for you to start working on portfolio projects. But I tell people, if you are learning from the first week or the second week, start doing small projects based on the things that you have learned, because that's the only way that you would not forget. And of course, I also talk a lot about volunteering. Volunteering is fantastic because as much as these projects that I talked about that they are nice, sometimes you want to find a real thing that looks like something that really added value to somebody. So you can find, I don't know, maybe someone is having an event or there's a small shop by your house. I had a friend who went and found a laundry. She was learning power apps and whatnot. She found a laundry shop close to her house and built them a power app to manage their orders and whatnot. That way, you even have sort of a sense of fulfillment that you have added value to an organization. And then they can even give you a recommendation or a review or whatnot. But you also sort of boost your confidence that you really know this thing. So you can find places like that. You can find somebody hosted a conference or an event. You tell them to give you the data of like their attendees, and you can help them build a report that helps them to sort of understand their audience, and they can use that information to plan their next event. So you need to build projects and then you need to sort of volunteer with people. Now, when you're done building your projects, you then of course have to start actually applying to jobs on LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn is cringe and somehow, but I think so far I've gotten 2 jobs so far in my career. I've gotten 2 jobs on LinkedIn. So, I mean, I believe that there are jobs on LinkedIn. So you need to actually apply for jobs. But I think another thing that can be a big game changer is joining a community. And I need to add that when you join a community, it's not just to go and sit down or to go and be hearing what they're saying there. No. When you join a community, it's important that you allow yourself to be seen in the community. And how do you allow yourself to be seen? You contribute to discussions. When somebody is asking a question, they're struggling with something, be the guy that offers to help people with their technical challenges if it's something you know. There are communities I belong to where literally somebody says they're having a challenge and there are people willing to jump on a call with you to guide you through to fix it. If I'm in a community and I'm having a challenge and some random guy offers to jump on a call with me to fix it. And the week after, my company is looking to hire somebody into that role. Do you think that I will not remember the stranger who jumped on a call with me? So that's the thing about like being active when you're in communities. So in like answering people, supporting people, answering people's questions, sometimes it might even now go as far as offering to teach people. Some of these communities, many times, they host like these free classes where you can teach people. In the people you are teaching, your employer can be there and you will not know. So you really need to like do all of those things to put yourself out there. The idea of all of this is all of us, even though we say we're afraid of sales, but one way or the other, all of us are actually salespeople. Just that at this time, what you're selling is yourself. So you need to sell yourself at every opportunity you find. And that is how participating in communities is selling yourself, talking about your work online sometimes. I know that now people overdo this talking about your work online, but just try to find the balance where you're actively selling yourself and letting people know that this is who you are. And I think another thing that is also important is building a brand, right? I make noise a lot on Twitter, but no matter how much noise I make, people still know me as Data Bender. The way that you build a brand is actually by talking about your work or talking about what you do. And what I always say, but what a brand means is that when people hear your name, there's something that comes to their mind. When people hear your name, what comes to their mind? Is it fight? Or is it, oh, that guy that likes controversy? Or is it data? So you need to build your digital footprint and your online brand in such a way that when somebody in somebody's company, they have an opening for a data, whatever, the first person that comes to their mind is you because you have so much branded yourself that they know that, oh, Esther or Etoro is equal to data. You are looking for somebody that can build the best data science models. Etoro is the guy because you have so branded yourself that way. And that is really how to find a job. There was a time I got a job off Twitter too one time, despite all the noise that I make, because I saw my money to brand myself. And when I put out that I was looking for a job, all the people who had known me recommended me to all kinds of places. And someone asked me to send my CV. And that was how I got a job. So really branding yourself and selling yourself at every opportunity that you have. And especially people say networking all the time, but there's something that I always say: how do you network? You don't just go and meet people and say, "Oh, I want to be your friend." So when I was talking about communities, when you network with people, you need to network from a place of value. And what that means is that when you meet somebody and you're trying to get into the person's circle, it's not just to come and say, "Oh, come, let's hang out. So let's be going out. Oh, come, I want to be your friend." No, you look for how to add value to the person or to the community or to the people. And that's how you get into a circle. When people see you as somebody who adds value to them, they will want to be around you. They will want you to be in their circle. But if you just meet somebody for the first time and the first thing you're asking them is, oh, please, are they recruiting your company? It's not really how to do it. You look for how to add value to the person first, then you and the person become friends. The person on their own will now be the one to say, do you want to change jobs? I'm opening my company and things like that. So networking from a place of value is also really good. But like I said, joining communities and actually adding value to people in the community. And of course, building a brand that sells you as what you want to be sold at every opportunity you get is also very key. So those are really the things. I mean, if you do all of that consistently for 6 months, I don't believe that you wouldn't find a job. Right. Even when I was finally going to do banking, I had done 4 years and then I had gotten that job that I said I got off Twitter. And when my executive director heard that I was leaving, he started offering me different stuff. He said, "Oh, is it because you want to do data? Okay, we can move you to the company's data office." So they offered me all sort of things. But that's also because I had shown myself as somebody, as a person of value, even on the role that I was. I had added a lot of value to the company and they didn't want to let me go. But really, just operating your entire life from a place of wanting to add value to people, to communities, to your friends is really how to get a job. It's not to be going around and be carrying your CV like a placard and be doing I need a job. That's really not it.
Oh wow, thank you. There's a lot that you said there, and just talking about communities, talking about building a brand. I think in general as Nigerians, we can be very, in some ways, we like to show ourselves, right? And so I think what some people hear when you say build a brand, and I'm not going to mention names, but there's someone I've noticed on Twitter recently who has just recently become a banger girl. And in my head, I feel like she's doing that because she wants to get a following. But I'm just like, do you want people to be following you because you're a banger girl, or do they want to follow you because you work in media or communication? So it's just like building a brand. I like to say that you can build a brand of your ignorance. Hi, my name is. There's one guy that did this, even though in my head I'm like, this boy, I don't know what he's actually doing. But like, I think the guy was in school and he built an entire brand out of the fact that he didn't know stuff. So, for instance, I mean, final year and whatever, and I just started learning UI UX design. It's like, oh, today I learned about neomorphism and the principle of something, something, something. And then those are kind of things I was posting on LinkedIn. There's this thing where I see a lot of people want to appear as a professional and an expert instantly. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
bro, it's like, oh, expert in communications. My friend, you've not done 3 months. You are still in the university. Don't kid yourself. Your degree is
Yeah.
not even a history or something, but because maybe you manage your church social media accounts, then you're like, communications expert. People that have 10 years are not calling themselves communication. Do you understand? So you don't have to present as what you are not. You are,
Actually.
oh, you are a data professional. You are an aspiring something something. It's okay to not know, and it's okay to
Yeah.
share that you don't know. I feel
You
like
don't
it's
know.
easier to say, "Oh, I was working on this data dashboard, blah blah blah,"
And
and
I
then
have
I'm
this challenge. I'm
yes,
stuck here.
that's your LinkedIn post. And you'll be
Yeah, it's
surprised at how someone will say, oh, have you tried this? Would you be willing
I
to?
try that.
So that is organic. That's not you trying to force anything and appear. Because what happens is that I know someone, like a friend who has a startup, was like, this guy, like, fantastic profile, everything, interviews. And when they now gave him the actual job, the boy didn't know
Job
anything. Like, he really could not, all the things, it was just wash. It
wash
was, what's that thing where you say,
ChatGPT.
yeah, if you don't beat your drum, nobody will beat it for you. So he had
Boy,
gotten so good selling himself. If you had forgotten that, like when people eventually buy whatever it is you are selling, you have to deliver. And
deliver.
at the point, yeah, at the point of
When
delivering
I
that,
first when I
yeah,
first
sorry.
joined Textilers, and I was also left to me then, I think I was like 2 years. I was into like still trying to get my feet in Excel and pick up Power BI. And then I joined, and because I didn't feel like I was in tech or anything, and I was just there and hoping to learn from everybody. But because I wanted to also add value, I noticed that the people who were handling the group's I think social media pages, either they were very busy, or but there were many times like the comments were left unattended. And me, I had just joined, then I didn't really know anybody, but I just knew the founder. And then I reached out to her and said, I just always called her attention to, like, whenever there was a comment that needed to be replied, either on their Twitter or on their Instagram and stuff like that. And then at some point, she then asked me, since I always see these comments before her, was it okay by me if I helped them to manage the social media handles and all of that? And I was like, oh, fine. Now I could have said that, is this social media I'm good for? I came here to do tech, oh, not to come and be doing social media and things like that. But then I did it, right? And I did that for some time before. After some time, she then asked me if I wanted to join the team that was training people in Power BI. And even though then I had learned Power BI for some time, I had done my certification exam and passed, I still did not feel confident. I still felt like I was not good enough. Maybe I was going to be a fraud, to be thinking that I can be teaching people and all of that. But then she encouraged me, and then I started teaching people. But I'm just here to say that, like, if you feel like you're not like that professional enough, you don't have to claim to be what you're not, right? There are still different ways. So there are still other ways that you can add value to people or add value to communities where you find yourself, without necessarily like being a fraud, or without claiming to be what you're not, because that one is also like very popular, where you're already parading yourself as a data consultant or whatnot, whereas you don't know that much. You just need to calm down and learn, because there's also something about like growing too fast, and then you have branded yourself, you have become popular, they have now given you job, And like Leke said, you cannot deliver on the job. Is going to be very terrible. So I think just finding that balance is also key.
Mhm. Thank you. So just moving on. Now that like imagine someone has already started a career as like a data analyst or you know what, before we go there, let's clear something up. So there are many data roles. I think you said that at the beginning of this webinar. So there's data analyst. So anytime I'm trying to write like what your role is, I'm like scroll through the profile. I'm like, let me not go and say data science. So it's like, what's the between like a data analyst, or should I say, how does the role of a data analyst differ from like that of a data scientist or like a data engineer? Just to clear that up, if you can help
Oh,
with that.
okay, well, so there is, in fact, these days things are now very fluid, right? And there's now a role called analytics engineer that is in the middle of data analyst and data engineer. But I
Wahala.
mean, yeah. So yeah, but I think I would say that the traditional data roles from the beginning were data analyst, data engineer, and data scientist. And I have an example of a wardrobe that I usually use to explain it. When you move into a new house and you have a wardrobe, or maybe you have two wardrobes, then you can then decide that, oh, I want to use these two wardrobes to keep my shoes. Okay, I'm going to use this one to keep my shoes and the second one to keep my clothes. And the one for my clothes, I'm going to keep my stay at home clothes at the top, and I'm going to keep my going out clothes at the bottom, and all of that. All of that is the job of a data engineer, basically. Usually, data engineers manage what we call data warehouses, and they sort of design how data is stored in data warehouses in such a way that the idea is to make sure that when the data analyst wants to find the data, they know where to look. It's easier for them to find it. So all of that decision of, oh, should I store my stay-at-home clothes at the top or at the bottom, or which ones do I take off from? Should they be at the front or at the back? All of those is the job of a data engineer. And also they sort of build the infrastructure that enables people or anybody to be able to get data out of a data warehouse. So things like understanding, sometimes cloud technology is usually important for data engineers, like because usually the data warehouse will be built in the cloud. So understanding cloud technology like Microsoft Azure, AWS, understanding SQL, of course, because when I said the infrastructure that people use to get data out of a warehouse is really those what we call pipelines and all of that. But that's quite a number of jargon. But that is really the job of a data engineer. Now, the data analyst is the guy who takes the clothes out of the wardrobe, or sometimes he may or may not take the clothes out of the wardrobe, but it's the guy who tells you, oh, in this wardrobe, oh, you have five white shirts and you have five black trousers, you have three dresses, he's the guy who most times analyzes the data. This data analyst analyzes that. So they tell you the situation of your business, right, based on data. They tell you, oh, the company, they collect all of the data that you have in the warehouse. They look at it. Now, use a bank as an example and say, oh, last year we made a profit of 20,000. And based on that, we paid the tax of so amount, we made a revenue of this. They basically tell stories with data, right? And companies would use those. So, of course, what that means is for you to tell me what is in the wardrobe. You need to know how to bring the data bring the clothes out of the wardrobe. Sometimes arrange it in a way that when I look at it at a glance, I can see everything I want to see. And that's where building dashboards and reports come in, because the data is a lot and executives don't have time to look at those plenty things. You just need to put it in a way that they can quickly see what they need to make decisions. And I think finally, a data scientist is the guy who sort of predicts the future. And how do they predict the future? They say, oh, from what we did last year, we noticed that we had a number of people that did, and because of that, we're predicting that next year this is what will happen. So that's why that is a bit it goes a bit further into like building data models. For example, you could use there are Tools like Python is popular with data scientists because you would want to build a model. For example, in a bank, how do you think that they decide which customer they should give a loan and which customer they should not? Based on historical data, sometimes they have built a model where they just put your information into it and the model tells them whether there's a chance that you will pay the loan if they give you or that you will not pay. So all of those is really the job of data scientists. They build all different kind of models. Sometimes they also use those models to sort of segment the customers to know which products to sell to this customer and things like that. So all of those are like the different areas. But like I said, things are very fluid now. Of course, you can switch from any of the roles to the other. Like I started as a data analyst, but today I do a lot more of data engineering. So you can really switch, and there are quite a number of other roles in data. There's like data governance, there's like data quality analyst, there's some other not popular ones. But yes, analytics engineering today tries to make sure the same person does the engineering and the analysis. And it just saves money for employers, really. But yeah, that's what it is.
Right, thank you for clarifying. So this has been really extensive so far, so I don't keep people too long. I'll see if we can start taking questions. I know Gertrude had a question. I'm not sure. Is Gertrude still here? I can't see Gertrude, but okay. There's two questions. Oh, Gertrude is here. Do you want to ask your question? Okay. Well, let's just take the questions we have in the chat for now. The first one from Helen Kolo, she says, thank you, Olayinka, for what you said so far. My question is, what are the key things to focus on in Excel that will make you confident that you have gained significant Excel skills? So you can just answer that one and I'll ask the second one.
Okay, I think, for example, in Excel, a lot of people, of course, are already popular with sums, average, and all of that, which are basic things that you need to know. But then as you go further into, you want to be a data analyst, you need to then start learning things like VLOOKUPs, XLOOKUPs, text, like text to column, all of the like data transformation formulas in Excel, data validation, I don't want to go to the very advanced ones, but things like VLOOKUPs, XLOOKUPs, text columns, data validations. Then the parts where you then start going advanced, you need to start learning how to use pivot tables, how to use pivot charts, how to use slicers, how to use then Power Query. Power Query is very, very powerful in Excel, just like the name implies. And now if you even want to go further after you learn pivot tables, pivot charts, Power Query is really the guide that allows you to you can bring data from like multiple Excel sheets and transform them and then use them to build charts. You really can build fantastic, beautiful dashboards even in Excel without going all the way to Power BI. Then you can go further to VBAs and macros. VBAs and macros allow you to automate simple tasks in Excel. And today there's a whole lot more. Now you can actually use Python, you can write Python code in Excel, you can use AI to do a lot of other fantastic things in Excel, but those are like very advanced level. But I feel like if you know like lookups, you know data validation, you know pivot tables, pivot charts, and then Power Query, you are in a bit of a comfortable place with Excel. Then I'll just read the second question, Leke, so you don't have to. Can I recommend resources, say YouTube videos or courses that I took that enhance my skill in Power BI? So there is a guy on YouTube that everybody swears by. I also watched some of his videos when I was learning, is Alex the Analyst. In fact, recently he released a whole data analysis bootcamp that is all on YouTube. It's fantastic. Alex the Analyst is very, very fantastic. He in fact, he teaches you like how to build your portfolio, what you need to learn and all of that. Then on Coursera, of course, there's a number of courses that I usually recommend. One of them is the Google Data Analytics Certificate. The Google Data Analytics Certificate is pretty intense and long, but if you can do it, it's nice. And then I recommend Microsoft Learn a lot too, especially for Power BI. because I feel like it's a Microsoft tool. So who better to teach you than Microsoft? Microsoft Learn, I also like it because of course it's free and it has like hands-on labs that allows you to practice and all of that. And afterwards you can take the certification exam. I think it's about $100 or so. And finally, if you like for somebody to sit down and teach you, I totally understand what Leke was saying. Like people have different learning methods. Some people feel like they cannot learn on their own. They want somebody to sit down and teach them. There's somebody, and this is not a paid advert. There's a sort of a data school that I swear by because it's, of course, it's run by Nigeria and it's very good. The name of the school is, I think, Foresight BI. They do courses in data, Excel, Power BI, and they do those boot camps occasionally, and they're very affordable and fantastic. So if you feel like you need to sit down and have somebody teach you and hold your hand, Foresight BI is also like a good place. But I think that's mostly the things that I recommend for people.
All right, thank you so much. Now that you've talked about like resources, can you mention communities a lot? What communities would you recommend? Aspiring data analysts to join.
Oh yeah, the community that I swear by the most is for data professionals is Data Community Africa, or you may know them as Data Fest. They organize the yearly um, Data Fest event. They've been around for I think it'd be like about like 3 years now. I think I just really like because it was founded by a group of people coming from like different roles in data and trying to understand how we can all support each other. And then they have like these free resources. I think they also have a partnership with Data Camp. Okay, I didn't mention Data Camp when I was talking about resources, but Data Camp is like really a platform where you can learn anything about data, literally. So Data Community Africa, they have like these mentorship sessions and they have a partnership with Data Camp where you can then get a scholarship to access Data Camp resources for free. So I feel like they find the balance between like helping you get the soft skills, having people to hold your hand. I think they have like Slack groups or Telegram groups that they use to manage all of this smaller groups. So apart from the annual event that they do like this smaller virtual technical soft skill events and stuff like that. So you can't really find your place there. But I also know that She Code Africa is also another fantastic group. They're not focused on data, but they have like those subgroups across different tracks, and they have one that is focused on data. So those are the two communities that I really know that are like good for data professionals, and I feel like you can get whatever it is that you're trying to learn. And please, when you join, try also look for how to add value to people.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have anyone with? Is anyone with a question? Another question? Otherwise, I'll just ask one more question on my part.
I I have a
Okay.
question. Good
Okay.
evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Olayinka. Thank you so much so far. Like I like that you put everything in perspective because there's a sense in which you've worked with like tools and probably Python and all these things, but and you like as you were talking, I was understanding that Itorobong, you actually know how to do this, you know how to do this, you know how to do this, but you did not know that you knew how to do it. Right, in the sense like you're applying for jobs and these are the roles that but like, can I really do it? But you've been doing it for so long, but you just did not realize. So I think like the gratitude comes from the fact that you are saying that these are the things you do with the data coming from like a career perspective in that sense. And there was something you also mentioned earlier on where you talked about like how context matters, guys, where you are and the kind of
Yeah, like the
data.
business
Yeah.
context.
So say in let's say you're working for say you are working in a supermarket or something like that, like retail kind of setting. How does data analysis in that role differ from say data analysis in should I say like a corporate setting, like say a sports company? So if you're
A
doing
sports, this is a sports company.
sports company or a sports channel or anything else that is just not like retail centered. So what kind
So
of like sorry.
Okay, so let me tell you, I promise you, like every time they would say, oh, we're looking for a data analyst, but we prefer somebody with experience in iGaming, we prefer somebody with experience in financial services. I would tell you for free, it's not a lot of difference in the actual thing that you do.
Mm,
Most times, the things that make the difference maybe would be the volume of data that you're working with, or the number of, for example, the number of, how will I explain it, how you need to break down the data. And I'll give you an example. The company where I worked before my current job was a more of a retail business, right? So we had a network of agents across, I think we had like over 200 agents. It was a solar energy, last mile distribution, whatnot. So we had a network of 200 agents, another maybe 25 shops, and all of that. So what that meant is when we were sharing budgets at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of there was a lot of nitty gritty around, oh, how do we share the budget, who gets the highest, and things like that, and whatnot. But when I compare it with, for example, when I worked in corporate banking in Union Bank, and we had maybe 25 relationship managers, and so it was still the same principle with sharing the budget, just that now we had to share it only across 25 relationship managers and all of that. So I feel like the core of the work is not a lot different. What is different, like I told you, is how you apply it to business context. Now,
mm,
like I said, when I was in banking, when I went for customer meetings, it helped me to understand how better we could, what products we could it helped me to give the company like product advice, or how to segment your customer and how to use products to do advice. But when I worked in this other retail company where I said we had thousands of agents and stuff, of course I also did I had to do field visits, go to all of the remote locations. The insights that I got from field visits in that place was how to better manage performance. What are the new KPIs that we need to be tracking to really make sure that people to get the kind of behavior that we want from our agents, because it helped me to understand their behavior, how they think, what is important to them. And if we craft this KPI, it will make these guys to sit up, it will make them to do what we want. So I feel like it's really the same knowledge, it's really the same technical know-how. It's almost the same everything that you do, like the same principles, the same whatever. What is just different is what kind of decisions does the business need to make with the data? What kind of decisions do they need to rethink how they are making? They need to pay more attention to the data and things like that. And sometimes it may not necessarily be your job, just like I was saying. It wasn't my job to tell them to change the KPIs for the agents or whatnot, but it is because I can say, and they've told me to build reports on whatnot, whatnot, whatnot. I build reports on what they asked me to build. But helping the company to get more value from data is also is not your job, but if you do it, it will help you to be like more valuable to the company. So that's when that was why I talked about like business context and stuff. But the principles and the technical processes and know-how that you use is really the same across different companies. Just what might change, like I said, is just the tool. If you go to another company, like when I worked for a startup, I found out their whole suite was Google Suite. And I had to then it was called Google Data Studio. Now it's been merged with Looker. So I had to learn I had not used Google Data Studio before on that job, before I got to that job. But because I knew Power BI, I just picked up Google Data Studio and I hit the ground running. And throughout the 1 year that I worked in the company, I was in Google Data Studio. So those things can change based on the company's stack. But I feel like the principles and the technical knowledge is really the same. For example, if you're a data scientist, in every industry, you want to segment customers, you want to predict. But if you go and work in a company where they have only 5 customers,
mm,
if there's nothing to segment really, but you might just want to understand the characteristic of each customer and see what products can sell. But you cannot be building a Python model to segment 5 customers. So that's really it.
okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Just to add, even though I'm not a data person, I think a lot of times with our jobs, we are focused on outcome, results. But a lot of what we do, especially if you work in tech, is process oriented. So, for instance, you can't go and cram and be like, oh, if I work in retail, I have to use Excel, or there are only five variables. The idea is that you don't just know the tool, you understand the framework mentally, because you can go from working in a bank to working in a company, for instance, that manufactures sanitary pads, right?
Yeah.
Technically, you're only selling to women. So that one of, oh, men, women, your segmentation is entirely different. So you're probably doing segmentation based on how old these people are, where they live, what's their income bracket. So you have to have a picture, like a mental model of the data, what it is, how it's supposed to be used. So there's no cramming. That's why I think Olayinka is trying to emphasize that, like, these skills are transferable. Yes, sometimes, like she's mentioned, you have to expose yourself to the business. So, for instance, go from banking to iGaming. If you are not even someone who knows anything about iGaming, it would be unwise for you to just carry data and be like, I'm a data analyst. Any data they
Yeah.
give me, you probably have to then go and maybe learn what iGaming is, how it works, who are the people who are the target audience for iGaming and products and services and whatever. So in that way, it's how you would need the contextual data that will then help you to do the actual job. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but I just wanted to put that out there. Do you have any other question, or should I just ask my final question so we can wrap this up? We've been here for a while. Thank you so much for your patience. Olayinka. Any other question? Okay, let me ask my final question. Let's assume that people have, taken all this advice, they've gotten their data role. How do you then advance your career? Because you can be data analyst in a bank, you can be data analyst in a supermarket chain. How do you grow to say I'm actually advancing? Um, maybe in the title, the job title, or like in how much you are being paid. How do you like make the decision? How do you say, what, maybe at some point I was data analyst that could be collecting 300K. Now my minimum I want to collect is 700K. What do I need to do?
Oh well. So I think it's something that I've said before, but I would just say it differently. Um, it would be again to be a person of value. I feel like value cannot be overemphasized, and you can never feel like you're adding too much value. So there was a time I joined the company, and the company was in a different country. So let's just say I feel like I goofed with the salary negotiation. And by the time I resumed, I started feeling underpaid because I saw what other people were getting. And I didn't get angry. I didn't immediately start fighting and say, why are you underpaying me? I didn't do any of that. I just did my job, right? But I gave myself a target that I was going to deliver something and I was going to ask for a raise in 6 months. And I wasn't going to ask for, when I'm asking for a raise, I'm not going to say it's because you are paying this person this amount. I am going to ask for a raise based on the value that I have added. So when I came and there was they had a Power BI report quite right in the company, but nobody liked to use it because for some reason they didn't trust it or they didn't like it or they didn't believe it or they just were not using it. So they stuck to their Google Sheets, whatever, for their reporting. And when I came, I saw the reports in Google Sheets and I was like, okay, nice, we'll survive. But after like the first, second month, I somehow managed to convince them and migrated all of the reporting to Power BI. And of course, I built like new Power BI reports and all of that. And like I said, I would engage the business, I would understand their pain points before building that report and make sure that I built what they wanted. And there was a guy, the first day he saw the report, he came to my office and said he wanted to buy me lunch. He was one of the people who had fought Power BI for the longest time. He said, no, Olayinka, I need to buy you lunch. This Power BI report is fantastic. Blah, blah, blah. And then everybody, in the mouth of everybody in the company, in the next week, requests were flowing. Every department wanted a Power BI report. And it was funny because they had always had Power BI, but they somehow didn't like it. And suddenly everybody likes it. Everybody wants it. And it was now so, because I always say that your job as a data analyst is to enable executives make data driven decisions and make them fast. So every time they said, we need to do one thing. Olayinka, do we have data for? And I'm just like, oh yeah, on page 7 of so and so report. I didn't have to go and do it ad hoc because I understood the business so much. I had built something that there was an answer to every question they had. So every time somebody said, we need, do we know how many? I'm just like, oh yeah, on page 7 of so and so chart, or on page 9 of this report, there's so and so chart. And sometimes my manager will say, how were we surviving before we had this report? And so, of course, what that meant is I had become so valuable. And in the 6 months, I asked for a raise. I know it's not always that easy, right? They didn't give me a raise, but then they promised me that at the end of my first year, I was going to get a raise. Unfortunately, at the end of my first year, I had gotten another job in another company. And when I told them I was leaving, they offered to match my new offer or my new job. They offered to match. They didn't want me to go. They said, how much? We'll match it. They didn't even ask me how much at the point where they were offering to match it. It was more like, whatever it is, we are going to match it because we want to keep you. So I feel like even if it's either within the company that you are or in another company outside that you're looking at, you really need to prove that you have value to give to people for them to want to pay you. All the times that I've changed jobs, I've never done less than 2x of what I was earning at my firm. It's not that one that you come and tell me that you put 10% on my job. Because when we're doing interview, number one, when I go for an interview, before the interview, I've already read about the company. Before you start talking about your problems, I've given you 5 examples of when I solved that problem for this other company or for one other company. And the way I will say it, you will know that I'm not cooking it up. If somebody is cooking up something, you will know. So when somebody is interviewing you and you have already told them how you are going to solve all of their problems, there's no way they're not going to hire you and give you good money. And I mean, sometimes you may not get good money in the beginning, but over time, when you prove the value that you're bringing to the table, you will get good money. And just like I said, in that company where I felt like I was undercharged, I just needed to show value. And then they were willing to pay me more because I had not added value. So really is even if it's within your company or in the company that you're going to, it's just really how you sell the value that you are bringing. And sometimes I promise you, you need to like jump and move around. My friends call me something who's a lawyer or whatever. But so far, I've not stayed very long on most of my jobs. I always move around, and it has helped me to sort of increase my income fast. And if you want to stay in one place, like I said, it really just has to do with adding value and being strategic. Of course, sometimes there's all of the you need to be visible, you need to talk about your work. But another thing that I also always tell people is look at the company that you're working in. What is the key goal of the management? What are the things they're thinking about that they need to achieve that is important to them? What can you do in your role that would be so impactful on that goal that the MD would hear your name somewhere and they say, because this person did this is the reason why we were able to meet the target. Sometimes it takes you going above and beyond and not just, I like visibility, I like talking about your work and all of that, but don't be visible talking about emptiness. Do actual work and then have something to talk about. And I feel like you would just be fine. It's not those playing all those funny politics. It's actually doing the work and then talking about the work that you do and plugging into like the company's goals. You would be just fine.
Oh,
Looks like there was one hand up.
yes. I think Omori's hand was up. Do you still have a question? Let me give some time because I think the person lowered their hands.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Um.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Fine. I had to raise my hand and drop my hand, raise it and drop it again because I think Olayinka don't
your
justice
hand
to the
was paining
questions.
you.
No, she had done justice to the questions I had. But truth be told, I think I learned it's fine. I took the time to be in this section today. I learned two things I didn't know about Excel before. Power query. I was hearing it from the first time for Olayinka. So Olayinka, well done. I probably will book a private section with you after this to learn more about Power Query. I had never heard that. Everything you had said about Excel, I knew. Alright? But when you
Yeah.
mentioned Power Query, it was a new thing to me. So thumbs up to you. Hmm?
You know,
However, yeah, sorry.
okay, finish.
No, you please go ahead.
No, I wanted to say, you know that thing, there's usually a joke where you ask people, oh, rate yourself in Excel on a scale of 1 to 10, and they say 8. And then you start asking them, do you know this? Do you know that? And they're like, oh, all those things are in Excel.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah, it
to
happens
be
all the time.
sincere, I done series of trainings with my business, alright? I was
Yeah.
hearing Power Query for the first time today, so thumbs up to you and well done. Good presentation.
Mhm.
I have just one question. You had said if you want to be very fluid in changing employers, you need to be very sure about what you do and how you sell yourself, right?
Yeah.
But you would agree with me, 80% of businesses in Nigeria today they are not willing to pay for what they need, right?
Yeah.
They want the best, but not willing to pay. So how do you cope with those type of situations?
You don't have to work for a Nigerian employer. So as much as there are some employers in Nigeria who pay, right? But of course there are many who don't pay. But like I said, you don't have to limit yourself. You don't have to work for a Nigerian employer. I have worked twice for non-Nigerian employers. The first one was remote. I was working for them remotely from Nigeria. The second one, I they actually processed my work visa and then I went to their country to go and work for them, right? And if I have worked with those two employers and I now currently work for a Nigerian employer, it proves two things. It proves that there are Nigerian employers who would pay. You just need to find them. It also proves that you don't have to work for a Nigerian employer. So if you feel like Nigerian employers are not offering the kind of money that you're looking for, and you have the value for that money, then you look outside, you find a non-Nigerian employer. And by the way, my two non-Nigerian job employers found me on LinkedIn. I don't make too much noise on LinkedIn. I don't do all those plenty apply to Maguire. I just apply for jobs and keep it moving. And then, so I think you don't have to restrict yourself to Nigerian employers. You can get better paying employers anywhere in the world.
Okay, so why I asked that is, while you were doing your presentation, you said something along the line in your career, you have to invest in yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
While you were doing that, you probably believe there'll be a
In
payday
return,
for you.
yeah.
So I suddenly have invested so much in myself to get all this knowledge. Then again, I have gotten the knowledge, and somebody is telling me wants to pay peanuts.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's is a big deal. And in fact, recently I have had I've been hearing some news recently, even for people working for employers outside Nigeria, and what they are paying them is peanuts, even though it's in USD. You know, because I mean Naira has devalued badly. And when you convert, I don't know, maybe $1,000 to Naira is 1.7 million, and it feels like it's a lot of money. But you find out that that same employer is paying your counterparts in another country $2,000, $3,000. You were not feeling underpaid because you were converting it to naira, or until you find out that they were paying other people $2,000. So I really just think that sometimes after making sure that you are really that valuable employee that they are looking for, especially because you know that the moment you're looking for international employers, the international employer also has a bigger pool of people to pick from. So you need to be like the best of the best for that person to be willing to employ you. So once you add that value to yourself, I think you just need to like find the right places to find those jobs. Sometimes you need to find people who, because yeah, there are a lot of companies who don't want to employ from Nigeria because of our peculiar issues, which sometimes I understand with the employer. But then find the few ones and position yourself in such a way that they would employ you. Of course, by applying to their jobs, sometimes cold emailing them and all of that. But yeah, I think we can get those jobs if we really build up ourselves. And sometimes access to the right information is key. So you can ask people if you have to. You can ask people who work for international companies how they got their jobs, and they will tell you.
Mhm. I was gonna say that you said something about branding earlier, and like you said, you don't have to come and be dropping every blessed day on LinkedIn. You make 3 posts. You don't have to do that, right? So, you can talk about your processes, your. Esther is no shade, no shade, but like if so for some people, and it depends on your goals. LinkedIn is like your portfolio. You understand? So they have
Yeah,
to there's a thing about like you having to be a LinkedIn influencer. There's that, but then there's also the part where you can just have LinkedIn as just almost like a public CV, and just to say, oh, I know this, I know that. The way you present yourself, the way you write. I know that not everybody is a writer, but the truth is, in this world that we are in, you have to have some
storytelling.
writing skills. You have to be able to, yes, it cannot just be like, um, so I analyze the what's it called, the inflow of containers to the seaports or something in Apapa or something. And you now be like, here's the link to my portfolio. You've not said anything. Like you've not said anything, right? But you weave a story. You have to learn again. That's why I think Olayinka has mentioned that it's not just the tool. That's why I've mentioned the framework. You have to be able to articulate why what you've done is important, how it offers value. And Olayinka has talked about value, value, value. So go on LinkedIn. Um, Sometimes when I'm just never stop searching for jobs, to be honest. Even if you are fine where you are, just say you can stroll one day and say, this doesn't look bad, and just play, and you just you just apply, right? So there are
I
different
do
ways.
that. I do
Yeah,
that a lot.
yeah, so you see, apply filters. So I used to limit myself to like remote Nigeria. Then I was like, that's the other thing that you can use sub-Saharan Africa as a filter. And then you now see some jobs that you were not seeing because you were only tied to Nigeria. But these people are offering remote anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's another way that you there are job boards of people who maybe they'll pay you, maybe they'll tell you first your first foreign job can be $500, and in this Nigerian economy, that's a lot of money, right? But once you are able to have that first taste of it, you then have the confidence to say, I'm on this $500. Let me not lie. They are collecting. Me, I want to, and then
Madam, please share the update, please. We need
no,
that
I'm saying that
$500.
that's what we are saying. Like it
No,
seems like it's the
don't
same
dollars.
thing,
Send us the
all
update.
of us. Is it not the same thing
I'm going
all of
to
us saying?
even just drop a link on the chat of
Okay.
a website that posts like strictly remote jobs.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you, Olayinka. We
yeah, I'm
need
going to
we
just post it on
we
the
need
chat.
that money.
But LinkedIn really, I mean, if you use it properly, you can get those jobs on LinkedIn too.
Yes. So as I was saying, filters. When you're searching for filters, like you put sorry, I don't know if you can hear that sound. Someone in my estate has a sports car. I won't stop disturbing. Anyway, um, so usually it's like, oh, you apply, maybe you use like Lagos as a filter. So expand this broadly to Nigeria. Then, for instance, you can do like Nigeria remote. You can do Saharan Africa remote. You can do EMEA remote. So these are jobs that like I mean, a lot of times, most of them they'll tell you it's EMEA, but they'll small. When you now look for details, they'll now stylishly exclude the Africa, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
stylishly exclude the Africa. But maybe you encounter 500 jobs and it's three that you see that you can apply to. Just apply. you know. And again, as you are building your brand, as you're putting your work out there and you are applying, this thing, it takes time. You know, it's like when you apply, even in Nigeria, you will see rejections. It takes just
Yeah.
one person to give you a chance,
One
literally.
yes.
1 years and your story has changed. So just throwing that out there in addition to all that we've said. And we're out of time. It is 6:29. Just if you can give any closing remarks or anything that you just want people who came here today to leave you. Yeah.
Oh
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I think I've said a lot about like being a value driven person, but I think that's just really something that has helped me in my career. I'm always looking for how to add value, both to people and to organizations, and you really just have to keep driving that. I'm happy to support a lot of people, so I mean you can find me on LinkedIn as Olayinka okay, or on Twitter as at Yinka okay, and you can send me a message if you have like further questions and stuff, and I'll try to answer what I can. Back to
Okay, all
you.
right. Thank you. So I don't know if you didn't join from the beginning. We're just saying that a lot of people say that they want help, but eventually when they reach out, when you say, okay, go and take this course and come back, most people will disappear. So just an encouragement to say stay on your game, stay till the end. Like nothing good comes easy. Like it's like for me when it's like applying scholarships, even though ironically I only like completed the application for one scholarship and I got it, but most people have applied to like 20 before they get one, right? So it's like with things like that, you have to be serious. You can't do this based on vibes and expect results. You know, most of us are not geniuses, so you really have to work at it. Just to encourage everyone out there, a thriving career in data in tech is possible. And yeah, that's all from me. I hope you enjoy your evening. So this was recorded. We'll share the link if you're on the African Growth Tribe group. We'll share this. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye bye.
Hi, where's
Right,
the
thank you.
sorry, where's the growth the link to the
The
group?
link. Okay. All right. Let me find it for you. And do I even know where it is right now? Okay, I think I found it. Mm. So yeah, we'll maybe do a short edit, put it on what's it called? YouTube, and then we'll share the link. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
You're welcome, Ito.
All
Take
right,
care, everyone.
all right,
Bye.
bye.
Bye, Becky. Bye, Yinka. Thank you for coming.
All right, bye.
Thank you very much.